Hello.
Hello.
Right, you've got your notepad in front of you.
I've got a notepad in front of me.
What I want you to do is draw like a straight line and then give it, like let it take up 4 lines in the paper.
Like to draw a straight line down the way, obviously.
Aye, or actually let it take up 6 lines in the paper. Right?
Right.
And then close to the other side at the end of the pad, I want you to draw another straight line taking up the same 6 lines. So you should have yourself like a sort of rectangle type shape. Aye.
No, really, no.
Oh, well, you've got the 2 straight lines, and then you've got the lines on the paper going parallel across the way.
Oh, you meant fucking right. See when you said the other side of the page, I went down the bottom and drew a line. Right. I've got my rectangle.
Right. So basically,
Colour it in.
no, don't call it in. But right, you could write like put a K beside, like in the first line outside the box.
Outside.
Like at the side, like just
Right.
before the box starts, put a K, and then an S below that.
Okay.
Right.
Uh-huh.
So basically, the K would be the kick drum.
Right.
And so, like immediately at the start of the box, you put in like a square or a big circle.
You want me to draw this? Right, I'll put in a square.
Right. And then sort of, right, saying the thing is like 4 inches, like your box basically, then you would put a square at every inch.
Right. So I should end up having 4 squares.
4 squares.
I might end up with 5, is that alright?
No, 4.
What is mailing, my box is mailing 4 inches.
Well, it's just sort of evenly spaced them out.
That's a bit late now.
Well then,
Right, I'll just pretend I've got a weird box that I already have, okay?
an inch after the 4th box you've put, like draw another straight line down at the 6th.
Right.
Right? So that would be your standard drum beat, right?
Right.
That would be the dum 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 dum, like that's it. So that's a bar full of drums.
Okay.
And like on every like on the second line, the S line, you would put like on your second and 4th boxes, you would put a box.
What does the S stand for?
Snare.
Right.
Right, so then you get the kick and the snare. So that would be like dum ch, ken, like a drum beat. And so like basically that's what you would do on a drum machine. You would have maybe, like depending on the type of drum machine, you'd have maybe like say 8 lines going down the way.
Right. Can I just say that fluorescent orange is fucking sexy?
And so each of your 8 lines would be a different instrument.
Right, aye.
So you would have the kick drum, you always have a kick drum and the snare drum, and then you would have like hand claps, hi-hats open and closed, and toms.
Are you want me to put any more letters in here?
No, because they're not really important for this.
Right, no bother.
And you would have like maybe a cowbell, depending on what time you're in. So basically that's how you program a drum machine.
Right.
Right, so you get your 4 kicks going, and that gives you a constant beat at whatever beats per minute you want. And depending on the beats per minute would be the tempo of your song, and obviously what kind of music you'd be able to make with that, whether it be really fast or really slow.
Right.
But that's like the gist of drum programming.
See, I feel as if you should have just done a YouTube tutorial instead of try to put it out over the podcast.
Oh no, it's because we're speaking earlier about house music and dubstep and that. And so basically like what you've drew on your grid sorta would be like the house drum beat, like just a standard, and then you would add the cowbell and the hats and whatever in later,
Like whatever else you needed.
and whistles as the song develops, like whatever you want.
Ooh, ooh.
So that's like the simple one,
Right, aye.
and obviously because it's house, like that's what it is. It's 4 beats in every bar, right?
Right.
And so it's a normal thing, and then you get into more complicated time signatures where it's like 8 or 6/4 or whatever. But you wouldn't need to worry about them and like sort of dance music because you want a constant like thump basically. And so that's what gives you your rhythm and whatever. So basically in the 80s you would hook up like whatever machine's doing your bass line to whatever machine's doing your drums.
Right.
Aye. And in order to keep the constant tempo so your drums are out of sync with your bass line, it would send like a pulse signal. So like basically like a metronome, you get what a metronome is?
Aye.
And it just ticks all the time. Except it would be sending that, and so like basically the loudness, it's in voltages instead of music, but basically it's the same. Like whenever it pulses, it's the start of a new bar, basically.
Right.
And that would keep your two instruments in sync. So you would have the 303 in your bass lines, which was a machine made for like sort of practice musicians. So the bass line would accompany whatever song they're making in their bedroom. And the 606 and later on the 808 and that, they were like the drum machines basically for the same company, and so you would be able to hook them up. And so somebody hooked up the 303 and the 808, and that was basically house music.
Been wicking your shit, haven't you?
Well, no, like there was a great program back on Channel 4 about like 10 years ago, and it took it for the roots in Chicago to like obviously all the other sort of types of music that came from it.
Right.
And there was a guy, a Bollywood music composer, and so he was doing Bollywood soundtracks at the time, and it was the start of the 80s, so disco was kind of big. And house grew a disco as well, because it's the same sort of drum beat as a disco song. So, like he brought out this album called, what is it, 10 Ragas to a Disco Beat. So it's like the classic ragas, but it's done on a 303 and like a rolling drum machine and also a synth for like the main lines.
Right.
So you've got this constant bass going, and it's like the classic sound, and the drums are doing the classic sound, but it came out like 5 years sort of before house music.
Okay.
So it's really weird because if you listen to it, it is like it's no like Western tuning, so it doesn't sound like music we're used to hearing.
Right.
But it does sound a lot like acid and whatever came later on because he's using the instruments.
So it's just the basis, like what we're used to.
That's it. It's the very like it's as if they'd heard that and said let's twist the dials while it's playing the bass line. Because basically that's how you get acid, was by making the 303 screech and do things it just wasn't supposed to.
That's the only my notepad.
No, like that's it. You've got your drum machine basically written down for you.
I coloured in the squares.
So obviously, like, depending on the drum machine, like maybe you'd hit a button to change between kick and whatever else.
Right.
But you would be mapping it out the same, basically, either like 8 different like bits you could either have on or off, or 16.
Right.
And so it would just be the same. Like your kick would always be like 4. Like, you know what I mean? Like you would have your kick and then 3 spaces, then a kick, then 3 spaces,
Oh, I get you.
and then a kick. So that's basically it.
So each inch on my wee rectangle's representing 3 spaces.
Pretty much.
Right. Which means that snares coming in every 6 spaces.
Well, every 4, your snare should be directly underneath every other kick. So you've got a kick and then 3 spaces and then a kick with your snare underneath it.
Sometimes that's 4. Aye.
And if you wanted to get fancy, you could put the kick like slightly after with a bit of delay on it as well. But like that's often what makes a song sound cheesy, is by putting delay on the drums.
They're getting fancy, as you put it.
Aye, well basically, like the whole... Look, if you want a constant rhythm and it's simple and that's what people can move about to, because that's the constant thing of the song, so when you start fucking with that and make like things that are known a constant timing, like if you had a song with a forever changing drum beat, nobody'd be able to dance to it. So the constant kick and where it is, like it's always at the same place, that drives the rest of the song along.
And allows you to keep bouncing.
Exactly, that's what it is.
Well, I'm sure all the house listeners out there will be pleased for this wee history lesson.
Well, no, I mean it's the same with every like type of music.
They can start making their own music now.
There's a reason you can't dance to like John Michel Jarre, really, because there's no a drum beat.
So you think you can only dance to it with a drum beat?
Basically, unless the bass line is basically the bass is in place of the drums. Like if you have a really low...
So it's acting like a drum?
Exactly, if you have a really low bass note and it happens like at the same place as the kick would at every part in the song, then that would drive. Like you get the intros of some songs and it's just like a bass note kind of like chopping away.
Alright, so just like some sort of kind of constant rhythm?
And it would be going like dum dum dum, just the same as a drum would.
Just like a rhythm, any sort of kind of constant rhythm?
Simple constant rhythm, aye. I mean that's why it's rhythm, because the rhythm's dependable.
Like it's something that lets the lassies shake their asses.
Well, wait, look, if you think about like a rock song, right? You've got a guitar solo going, but the bass is still keeping the rhythm of the song, the drum's still keeping the song going.
See, saying it like that makes more sense to me than everything else. I get what you mean though. Like, properly get what you mean.
If you've got like say that if there's any part in the song where everything just stops, and then like a piano comes in or a guitar comes in, like something like that, then it's sort of like it fucks everybody up. It's like, where do we go for here?
But if you keep the bass going in the background while they're changing or whatever, then it kind of keeps it right.
Exactly.
Right.
I mean, you used to see Led Zeppelin concerts, and they would have like half an hour long guitar solos. And obviously, I mean, it sounds good like in a sort of experimentation way, because he's trying the violin bow and he's trying all these different effects on the guitar to make it sound like a guitar has never sounded. But there's only so much the crowd can do just standing there listening, you know what I mean?
That's fair enough.
So that's basically, I mean, it's really simple.
But necessary.
Aye, I mean, well, it's
obviously
it's more than necessary. Like when you're talking about house and that, basically the bass line is the song.
Aye.
The bass line and the drum beat that keeps it going. Because in a lot of house songs there wasn't anything but the bass line and the drum beat.
What we were also speaking about earlier though is like trying to define between house and dubstep and garage as well, I think we mentioned.
Well, dubstep's the one that puzzles me, definitely.
Aye.
On the documentary I was talking about, there's a great part where one of the guys for Chicago, he says they started talking about techno, they started talking about all this other shit. Like, and he's like, I didn't even call it house, it's just music.
Aye.
Because that's it, like, everybody's desperate to put a label on it and say, oh, this is this and this is that. But at the end of the day, like, when I'm sitting making something, I'm like, what the fuck have I made?
Especially when you put everything on the internet, you need to have a label.
Well, you need to have a label in order to get folk to listen,
Aye.
I mean, it's different, like, basically I can just put up rock, and whether it be, like, death metal or whatever, like, it still falls under rock. But you can't do that with electronic music.
I think garage has got something to do with the tempo.
Well,
Like, it has to,
they've all got
has to be
something to
like,
do with the tempo.
aye, but it's like it has to be really, really fast. Like faster than anything else or something like that. I cannot remember.
Oh, not necessarily. Basically, if you think about garage, like it's like house meets like hip hop would be the best way of saying it. Like
Aye,
it's still got
right.
it's still got the bass lines in that, but it's more a sort of like sampled drums. Like if you think of drum and bass was a lot of like sampled drums, and they
Mhm.
would have unusual placement compared to house, and that's when sampled drums really come in.
Fair enough.
But I suppose that's what it is, because when you think of garage, you basically think of like British rap,
That's true, I suppose. Aye, but it's
British
no.
R&B sort of.
Aye, but it's no really though. I mean, that's what people think, but that's not really what it is.
Well, how's it no?
Because they don't need to be rapping
No, they
or
don't need to be
anything on
rapping,
the
but
track. There doesn't need to be any.
in terms of like the musical sound,
I suppose. Well, especially when you think of folk that like class themselves as garage acts, and you're thinking of like, I don't know, man, So Solid Crew and stuff like that.
hmm
Uh, but then like you've got folk that sound like them, like So Solid Crew, like Dizzy Rascal and that sometimes, and Wiley and whatever. But that's grime,
that's
and
grime
it's
because it's got a dirtier edge apparently.
aye,
I
apparently
don't know.
so. Aye,
Like
it just
I like
doesn't
the
sit
stuff
with
Dizzy
me,
Rascal did with Calvin Harris.
really.
And was it the one he did with was it Bonkers? He did
Bonkers, that was
with
good. Aye,
who did it that way?
I don't know.
Was it Armand van Helden?
I just remember his name on it.
Well, the thing about Bonkers was it had all the 303s going, and it was like the signature sound. Like, and it had all the whistles and that as well.
Mhm.
So it was
Aye.
like a track for 1989, basically.
It was Armand van Helden.
Aye. But that's like the best, like the best example would be Bonkers because it is like hip hop, but with a lot of like house roots.
But it's grime, no garage.
But it's great.
Apparently.
Is-
But it sounds the exact fucking same.
But how does it sound the same?
Like, Bonkers and Dance With Me sounds the same as some of like the fucking shit Felix So Solid Crew or whatever.
I don't know, dancing like Calvin Harris has always got a sort of like cheesy 80s thing going on in his songs. The one him and Dizzy Rascal did, it was called Holiday.
Right.
I don't know if you remember that.
I don't think so.
It was written for the Saturdays. And he's done music with like Kylie and Sophie Ellis Bextor and folk like that as well. So Calvin doesn't really stick to. Well, he sticks to his type of music. Like you can tell it's his song.
Well, I've actually found something here about Oxide and Neutrino,
Right.
right? Who were obviously garage and they were part of So Solid Crew and blah blah blah, but they're now saying that they're grime. They're caught. So it is basically the same because their music doesn't really sound any different than what it did 10 years ago, in my opinion.
I definitely remember Oxide and Neutrino's music sounding a lot rawer than what comes out and gets classed as garage nowadays.
Mm.
Like a lot more like aggressive sounding,
No, it was though.
like harsh
It
sounding.
always was. That was what kind of fucking set them apart for everybody.
But I don't mean like the lyrics, but the sort of like they didn't sound overproduced. If you think of garage new, like it's got a certain sound, and they sounded
Mhm.
like more. Like I don't want to say like the best comparison would be like if you listen to the Wu-Tang Clan. They always sound a lot rougher than like Puffy.
No, it was.
Like
No, it was with a gravel pit.
Gravel Pit sounds Raw.
Oh, come on.
A gravel pit sounds a lot rawer than like whatever Puffy was bringing out at the time.
Not just any Puffy song at all. Like.
So I mean that's the only comparison I could think of. Like it sounds underproduced. Doesn't sound as polished. But then like that's the appeal of the Wu-Tang Clan. They've got like a harsh sampled sound.
But I've got another thing here saying the dubstep's like a kind of offshoot of garage, and it's like taking its influence for like Jamaican music, like reggae music.
Reggae
And
music.
shit like that. But now there's something else that's saying like producers of like garage and grime and dubstep and shit are like trying to fucking put them all together as something called UK funky, which takes its production values for many different shades of UK garage music and blends them at a standard house music tempo with tribal style percussion. What the fuck? Honestly, man, why do we not just call it all dance music and be done with it?
Well,
That's what folk do to it, they just dance.
if you hear the first version of Confusion by New Order, right?
Right?
It's got a really good drum beat, like on the toms, basically. So, like when you said tribal drum beat, like that's the first thing that came into my head was like that. So they want a house tempo and a house drum beat, but they want a tribal drum beat on top of it.
They basically just want to mix garage, grime, and dubstep together.
So
And
basically, what they want is a Dizzy Rascal song with a bass line drops.
they could always just put like Dizzy Rascal with New Order, although they've split up, haven't they?
New Order definitely split up by
A year and a half ago.
Hookie fell out with all of them.
Aye, but did they not release something saying like him leaving is not the end of New Order or something?
Aye, and Hookie subsequently released something that says, well look, I own the name.
That's a bit of a prick move, is it not?
Well no, because they were New Order, and they all had offshoot bands like the first time they broke up. You like Electronic and a few other groups.
Right.
So there's no reason why they should use the name New Order when it's no New Order. It's like, I mean, they called themselves New Order instead of Joy Division because Ian died, right?
Aye.
Like, you don't use the same name if you're not the same band. Because
So you think him leaving, they should change their name?
aye, because
Right.
Hookie brought a lot to the sound. When you think of New Order, a lot of it is like droning bass lines. Or even when you think of Joy Division, it was the bass lines that led the song. Like, they were at the foreground of production, and the guitar and the vocals even would be in the background somewhere. So
I was
Hookie
actually talking to somebody about like New Order and Joy Division and that earlier today, and they were saying something about they thought like Peter Hook was dead, or that he'd had a breakdown or something when he was with Catherine someday or something like that.
Hall It Plays Miss Melton, aye.
Is that did he have a little breakdown or something?
Oh, well, there was a whole divorce thing, and
Aye.
the thing is, like, if you read Hookie's book, obviously there was a lot of drugs flying around,
Aye.
a lot of drinking, and things happen, and a lot of folk got hurt. And obviously, when the drugs stopped, folk had to look at their lives and sort things out.
So he did have a kind of breakdown.
Oh, he'd certainly had problems in his personal life.
Right. Well, they thought he was dead.
No, he's no deed.
I told them he wasn't dead, but like they thought something had happened to him, or he tried to kill himself possibly.
He, as far as I know, he DJs now.
Right.
I think he's still doing that. And Joy Division and New Order songs always got a big, like, cheer for the crowds when they come on.
Aye. Well, we go on to that topic earlier because we were talking about Amy Winehouse passing away, and
Right.
I was saying about like all the best rock stars or whatever dying before 30.
We're usually at 27.
Aye, 27, and they were just trying to like list folk, and it was like Jimi Hendrix, he was 27 apparently.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Kurt Cobain.
aye, Janis Joplin.
Aye.
I
Mama
can't
Cass.
remember the rest of them. But like, I know he wasn't 27, but I was
McCartney,
mentioning
Ronaldo.
Ian Curtis because he died before 30. And I go on to that, and then we were talking about like 24-hour party people and whatever as well.
Right, aye.
So I figured you would have liked to have joined into that conversation.
Right.
But Amy Winehouse, aye, fuck.
Well, I was speaking to this about my mum and dad, and
Mhm.
it's interesting, like, if you think of, like, Jimi Hendrix, right?
Mhm.
Jimi Hendrix had a lot of unreleased material that has since early years came out,
Released.
and no even on legitimate labels, like some of it's sort of, like, bootlegs and stuff like that, but it's still all coming out,
Aye.
and
Aye.
it's been well over 30 years since they did. And then obviously Nirvana, like they had a big box set in like 2004 or 2005, and like it was all unreleased material,
Mhm.
and there's still Nirvana albums coming out the new with new well, quote unquote new songs on it.
So where you're going with this is, will they be talking about Amy Winehouse in 20 or 30 years'
No,
time?
well, what I was thinking was somebody like Amy Winehouse though. What did she have like legitimately about 3 albums?
Three, I think, three, aye.
So,
Two that were like really commercial, I don't know about the third one.
So, I mean, she had an album before she got big, at least one
Mhm.
album before she got big, and then the rest. So, I don't think she would have been the type of person to be always in the studio recording, to have a lot of. And, like, it's no because of the drugs or whatever. Hendrix was off his face all the time,
Aye.
but Hendrix spent a lot of time recording. Tupac spent all his
Oh, that's
time.
another one that like died before 30.
Tupac spent like all his spare time after he came out of prison in the studio. I don't think
He
Winehouse did.
No, he was in there like 16 hours a day and shit
Mhm.
sometimes, wasn't he? He wouldn't let folk go home until he was like fucking happy.
Well, the whole thing with the 7 Day Theory was that, like, Dre was busy, all the good producers were busy, so he went into a room with like folk that were making cheesy shit music,
Mhm.
and then they made this fucking like great sounding record. So, like, he just would use whatever was there at the time.
Well, he made it all work, didn't he? Basically.
Aye.
I mean, I'm not going to like fucking jump in his nuts or anything because I don't listen to him that much anymore. But like, I've not heard a Tupac song that I've not been able to listen to all the way through or listen to numerous times or whatever. Amy only had 2 albums.
Two
I knew
albums.
shit. Aye, Frank and Back to Black. I knew about those two, but I thought there was one before that.
Was Frank the one that came out before Rehab?
Aye,
Aye. So that was her first album, and then the one with Rehab on it.
aye.
See, well then that's worse. I thought she had an album after Rehab.
I see. I thought she had an album before the album before Rehab.
Before Frank.
Aye, I thought
Right.
there was an album before that because I've been listening to her since Frank.
Hmm. I
And
remember seeing her on Buzzcocks.
well, when I was listening to her like since Frank, I thought I was just like one of many, as if I was on like the bandwagon kind of thing.
Mm.
But obviously not.
And then that makes it worse because what's the album with Rehab on it? Is it Back to
Back
Black?
to Black.
Aye. And Back to Black came out a long time ago.
2006.
Aye. That's 5 years she's not had an album out. I think if she'd been recording an album to come out, then that might come out. But she can't have a lot of stuff lying about for them to
No,
release.
especially since she was like trying to sort of sell out and whatever.
I think maybe a greatest hits, 2 new songs on it, 3 new songs on it. That'll be it.
See the thing, like just a month or 2 months ago, there was pictures there, and she was looking a lot better, and she'd done a gig, and then she'd went to another gig, and she was just fucked again. It's a shame. I'm not going to say it's surprising, because it's no surprising, as sad as that might be for her age, but it is a shame.
That's the thing, it wasn't surprising. But who really would be surprising? Like, if I checked Twitter yesterday and it was like Justin Bieber's feed.
Well, he's got a lot of haters. You know.
What, like as if one of them would kill him?
Aye.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Who would be surprising? Does it need to be a singer? Because I could just say CM Punk with that straight edge attitude
Yeah.
that you love. You love him.
I think there really is no like. I reviewed I said like in 2000 or in 1999, Britney Spears is dead, right? That'd come as a shock.
Mhm.
But if you would say to me this year or last year, Britney Spears is just it wouldn't be a big thing.
No, I know what you mean.
So I don't think there's anybody in the music industry that knew where it would be a shock if they overdosed or
What about Miley Cyrus?
what about, there's no an innocent star in music.
I'm sure she wouldn't be innocent after you got hot there.
Like I know, oh god, I know in the 80s, right? You had like Duran must have been off their face. Like they all must have been off their face. Spandy Ballet and all the rest, like all the big commercial groups.
Mhm.
But it's no like you like. Can they still look relatively innocent compared to what we see nowadays?
But at the time, they didn't look innocent to people living in that time
Well,
period.
they did. Like the
No, but
kids
it's
still
happening.
had the posters up on the wall and stuff like that. It's no like you never saw them on the cover of the Sun. Like
Well, that's singing it.
when I think of Duran, right, I like to imagine them with Scarface-sized mountains of coke in front of them. But I never saw that in a newspaper.
See, you're not going to like this, but when I think of Duran, I just think about that video where the lassies fighting each other in mud and shit. What was the name of that song?
Girls on Film.
Girls on
They
Film.
had some great music videos.
Oh god.
But they were like the poster boys for the height of 80s excess. But they were still tame and innocent and like
Your parents would listen to them.
aye, sorta
Aye.
compared to what's out now.
Ah, well, times are changing, eh?
I mean, I don't even look at the charts. Like, who's selling records now?
Bruno Mars.
Bruno Mars. Oh
Mhm.
no.
Rihanna.
Rihanna.
What about her?
Wouldn't it be a shock, would it?
I don't know about it not being a shock. I think it would be a shock, but I think like what you're trying to say is that in this day and age it happens all too often.
No. What I'm saying is, I know that it's sort of expected of them, but
I'm not saying it's expected, but it has happened a lot. So when it does happen now, I'm not going to say numb to it, but it's no as big a shock as it would have been 10 years ago.
I would just say that their lives are a lot more in the newspapers and on the internet. That it's very hard to
The internet.
have a wholesome, clean image.
But because we get to hear all the shit about them, right?
And you hear it from everywhere. So like, as soon as Winehouse would come out her house, they'd be like, "Oh, aye, there's pictures of her falling about, coked off her face, or what, allegedly, or whatever."
Allegedly, I like that.
So
Thrown in there.
like, when you read, "Oh, that's Amy Winehouse," oh wait, it's like, ugh.
But it's not just music artists. It's like actors, sports stars, I suppose, as well.
Well, definitely in the last few months, shall we say?
Let's not get into that.
But Ryan Giggs. But it's like, I don't know, like it's, but at the same time, you would still, like, I'd be surprised if Wayne Rooney was fun face down in a like pool of vomit.
Really?
I mean, I've read
I'd just
stories.
say that happens to him on Saturday nights.
I've that's the thing. Formula One was on, right?
Right.
And I was like, that's a very British sport. Because after the race is after the race is done, right? There's like 40 laps or 50 laps, 60 I think it was the day. And after the 60 laps, they have all the champagne,
Aye.
right? And it's like, you don't get much more British than that, right? You've done well, let's all get pished.
Fair enough, aye.
It's like,
So you think football would be better if they just like brought on
On a fucking makeshift bar into the middle of the pitch.
well, not in the middle of the pitch, but I think it's, like, I mean, it's expected of football players. Don't drink before the match, and then after you win, obviously you go out and enjoy it, because you won,
or you lose and go out and get pissed to forget about
to
it?
drown your sorrows, exactly.
Aye. So whatever happens in Britain, get pissed.